So a very warm welcome tonight at Paagman Bookstore. We have a very special guest tonight. We have Mr. M tonight. And first I would like to welcome to the ground Mr. User. She will introduce Mr. Sri.
Goedenavond. I try Dutch. I'm just going to read to you a small introduction of Sri M. Sri M is a peace activist, social reformer and educationist. He is a torchbearer for peace, communal harmony and tolerance in today's conflict-ridden society. He has been striving towards this objective for several years through his numerous social initiatives aimed at the promotion of tolerance and non-violence. Sri M was born in 1949 in Trivandrum, south of India, and grew up in the Sufi and Muslim traditions. On finishing his graduation at an age of 19, he left for the Himalayas for his spiritual quest. There, he lived for many years, and under the guidance of his spiritual teacher, he did an in-depth study and contemplation on comparative religions and their common basis. He was tasked by his teacher to spread the message of peace and harmony as his life mission. On his return, he mobilized initiatives for the poor tribes and implemented programs especially focused on promoting tolerance, non-violence, and human oneness. Sri M is the founder of the Walk of Hope, which he implemented in India for the promotion of peace, harmony, and oneness of humanity, a 7,500 kilometer long walkathon from the southern tip of India, Kanyakumari, to the north in Kashmir. The walk started in January 2015, and the impact was astounding. More than 1 million people from different denominations have come to walk with Sri M and resolved to a peaceful living. The walk was concluded in Kashmir in April 2016. Sri M has written several books, including Apprentice to a Himalayan Master, a yogi's autobiography, and a sequel to it, and a number of other books, including his first novel, Shunya, which you are seeing, which was just launched recently in India. Sri M's life mission, in his own words, may be summed up as born human, be human, every step for humanity. Thank you.
So, I welcome all of you to this little gathering in Paagman Bookshop, with special mention to His Excellency the Indian Ambassador to Netherlands and Saroj, his wife, who also are interested in me and I think interested in the book. And all my good friends who are here, thank you for coming. This is a different thing from my usual gatherings, because in usual gatherings we talk about spiritual topics and we talk about meditation, we do all these things. You know what happened? I wrote my autobiography, which is called Apprentice to a Himalayan Master, some years ago. Some people read it seriously. Some people thought it was fiction, but it was non-fiction. So, after 13 years, I decided, let me write fiction. Because there are two approaches, to making people understand certain things. One is non-fiction, which is a narrative. And then there is the fiction, in which you can build in very interesting things, and people who are not interested in non-fiction will read fiction. But the fiction is like, I also if you ask the anthropologists, that they will tell you that the first time human brain began to evolve out of the ordinary was when the Homo sapiens started inventing and imagining, which the chimpanzee cannot do. So the whole basis of our civilization, including all the human rights and everything, is heaven and hell, and everything is based on our imagination. So imagination plays a great role in expanding our universe. You can tell a plain story. In India we have this story called the Ramayana. If you want to put it in non-fiction way, in that style, then it would be Rama was the son of a king, Dasharatha. His wife was taken away by another king in Sri Lanka, and then he went and rescued her and brought her back. Finished. Story is over. But when the great, he's called Adi Kavi, the first epic poet of India, Valmiki, when he wrote the Ramayana, he made it interesting in story form. Everybody likes storytelling. Storytelling is the art of expressing what you feel in story form so that people grasp it indirectly. So this is one of the reasons why I finally wrote fiction. I've been working on it for many years. And the wonderful thing is when I send the first chapters and the little, what do you call that? Synopsis to Amazon paperbacks are called Westland. When I send it to them, the editor immediately the next day called me and said, "Hey, we are interested." Because she said she's interested, I could do some negotiating. Normally I'm not a man who thinks of how much is going to get and so on. I thought they want it, so let's negotiate. So I got a good negotiation. So the Shunya is out. It's a novel, my first novel. And after that, many short stories have already been accepted by Penguin Random House because they're very happy. They read Shunya and they're probably thinking that when this 3-year period is over, they can take it. So then I discovered that I too have a little bit of expertise in writing fiction. That's when I discovered. When these editors said, "Hey, this is excellent stuff, sir, why don't we do more?" So here you have Shunya. Now, why did this title Shunya? I tried many titles. I thought about many titles. You know, the Buddhists have an expression to describe the ultimate truth from which the origin of everything, from which everything comes and goes back. In Vedanta in India, we call it the Brahman, but the Buddhists call it Shunya. Now Shunya, the actual word Shunya, also in mathematics, in Indian mathematics, Shunya means zero. The greatest contribution of Indian mathematics to the world is the invention of zero. So Shunya is the word used for zero. Very interesting if somebody describes a phone number with many zeros. It will be very nice to hear them saying, "Do, teen, shunya, 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 shunya." That means 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, when you say shunya, it doesn't mean nothing. It means no thing. Not a thing which can be defined easily, but it is something, but it is not a thing. You know, when you say thing, it has length, breadth, dimensions, but when it's not a thing, then it has none of these. So this character you find in Shunya is difficult to describe in any material terms. That's one part of the story, why I wrote Shunya. The other is, in India and also in other parts of the world, we have a concept. I don't know if you have heard about it. I'm sure I find that many people here have heard lots about India and culture and philosophy. You might have. There's a concept called an avaduta. An avaduta, he would normally be considered a crazy man. completely crazy. You can't make out what he's saying, why he's doing. Mani, please sit down. So, this is a character like that. I have met several Avadutas in my life. I was from childhood interested in spiritual matters. So I met many such strange fellows, you can say fellows, it doesn't matter to them, who some section of society actually worshipped as saints, but they were crazy. You'd think they are crazy. Once I had a nice chat with one of these guys. He was sitting on a stone near the forest in the Himalayas, in Rishikesh, and he was smoking a cigarette. So I didn't know whether to go and sit near him or, because some of these guys are so crazy they might kick you out. So I very carefully went and sat on another rock which was close to him. He said in Hindi, "Do you want to smoke?" I said no. He was smoking. And then we had a chat. I said, many people think that people like you are crazy. She said, "But we think that you are crazy." And he also said, if the world that we have today is the result of 1,000 years of sanity, it's better to be insane. One such character is the hero of this book, Shunya. It's very interesting. He doesn't live in a temple, he doesn't live in a monastery, he doesn't live in a church. He appears out of nowhere suddenly and goes and lives in the backyard of a toddy shop. You know what a toddy shop is? It's a local bar where people are served local liquor. He goes and settles down in a small house which belonged to the owner once upon a time of the toddy shop in the backyard, and he lives there for 2 years. And all the adventures that happen in these 2 years, this is the story of Shunya. And when anybody asks him, "What's your name?" he says, "My name is Shunya, nothing, zero." And they say, "Where did you come from?" He said, "Where does Shunya come from?" "Nowhere." And then he disappears after 3 years. Nobody knows where he went. And the 3 years he lives there, there's a big drama going on because he's a man. He's a person who's not only crazy in his appearance, but he breaks all rules and norms. And people misunderstand some of his actions. So they even try to murder him. But he doesn't get, they burn down his house, but he escapes. You read that description, it's very funny. The 4 people who come to burn his house belong to some certain religions, and they feel this guy is disrupting everything. And so they want to set fire to his house. So they come, it's a thatched built house. Thatch, you know what it is. I see some thatch here also in old houses. Hay on the top. They pour the petrol and set fire, thinking that they could hear him snoring inside the house. And then there is an owl sitting up on the tree and hooting away. So after this, they go and sit in one corner to see if he's really burning down and dying inside. And then the owl hoots. So before that also it hooted, after burning also it hoots. So they say, "Oh God, this blasted owl is hooting again." And Shunya says, "Hey, this is not the owl, this is me on the tree," and gets down. You'll read such interesting things with Shunya. Now my idea was to reinterpret the understanding of so-called enlightened people. They may not behave exactly as we do. Maybe some difference. Apart from that, it's a nice narrative. I hope you read it and say, "Good writer," I hope. So this is my first attempt, and I will continue to write fiction because it's kind of a rest for me from doing all kinds of things like walk of hope and all that. My hope is to write fiction now so that the mind is free and it enjoys in imagining things and putting them out onto paper. So this is the reason why I wrote Shunya. Please remember, that while Shunya means zero, you want to make 1 into 100 into 10, you add 1 zero. Then it's 10. You want to make it 100, you add 2 zeros. But zero is nothing. You add 1,000 zeros and you have 1 billion. Right? So zero is of great value. And the human being who I think becomes a really evolved human being is one who thinks I'm zero. One who sees that there's much to learn that we don't know. You know, the moment I say I know everything, I'm sunk. The moment I say there is much to learn, I'm admitting that there are some parts of me which are zero. So this is Shunya. So I'm not going to talk anymore. We've already, it's become my profession to talk, so keep talking. So thank you very much for coming. If you have any questions regarding this, you're welcome to ask. Any question. But I'm not Shunya. In India, many people ask me, is this really fiction? Is it non-fiction? Are you Shunya? Are you going to disappear also like Shunya and so on? So, let me confess, I'm not Shunya, it's my creation.
Does somebody have a question?
Nobody has a question.
The first question is always
That's so
the hardest.
nice. Okay, first question is hard here. Yeah, here. Yes, coming. She wanted to come back. Okay, she agreed.
No, I would just like you to explain what you said initially a little more. The difference between nothing and no thing.
Now the word Shunya, you will find that in Buddhism, especially both Theravada as well as the Mahayana, Shunya is the word used for the ultimate. Nirvana is when you touch Shunya. Now this involves two things in the teachings there. It means first you have to empty your mind of all the muck that has gathered over the years until it becomes Shunya, empty. One. Second, therefore, when that happens, it's no longer a thing. A thing is something you can measure. Shunya is something you cannot measure. So it's another substitute for the immeasurable. Well, the ancient Upanishads, since you know how the ancient Upanishads also talk about Shunya, but in a different way. For instance, I have written at the back of the book a quotation from the Upanishad which says, that which cannot be seen by the eye or by the senses, that alone is the truth and nothing that we know here. You want the Sanskrit? Chakshusha pashyati yana chakshumshi pashyati tadeva brahmatvam vidvi nedam yadidam upasate. That's a final statement. Nothing that you worship here. That which the eye cannot see, but because of which the eye sees. The witness behind the eye of the eye. Kannina kanna manamagum kannadine kannayidunna parul anannariyamalav anandamendu Hari Narayanano Harinama Sankirtan. Sorry, So, that eye of the eye is best described by no thing. And that is Shunya. Although it has no definitions, that is the nearest definition you can get to. The great thing is it is from this that everything meaningful comes and goes back. Wait, since we are on the subject, can you get anything into something which is already full? I can pour water into this vial because it is Shunya at the moment. There is space. If it was full, I can't pour water into this. So the space is as important as what goes into it. That is Shunya. Yes?
Could you speak a little that a part of me wants to go towards Shunya, which is impossible, and yet on the other hand, there is so much that constantly resists that wants to cling on to the little me, that paradox of the me wanting to get, but it has to go beyond itself. Maybe you could speak.
Yeah, that's the paradox which we all have. When we want to become big, when we want to expand, even in a spiritual way, it's the mind realizing how incomplete it is and trying to complete itself, to become Purna. Purna is a substitute word for Shunya, which means only in that space can there be that fullness. So there is always a tussle because the mind is afraid that maybe this guy is going to kill me. And it's in danger of being killed, you see, being finished. So that's why there is this tussle. When you realize that ultimately when it reaches that state of complete silence, that's also Shunya, silence. Silence is not talking. Silence is when the mind stops chattering. You can sit down without talking for 2 hours maybe if you want, but the mind constantly chattering. So when that chattering stops, there is a silence. The mind doesn't like it. You know why? Because like nature abhors a vacuum. When there's a vacuum, air tries to rush in. In the same way, when the mind is quiet, it doesn't like it, it likes to. So there is this tussle. So if you understand this clearly, you can be in the middle of the noise and yet be silent. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is something that is there even when there is sound. If one can't find silence in the marketplace, you can never find it anywhere. Why are we going into philosophy? Sir.
I'm coming your direction.
I understood that you have been working on this project for 3 years.
13 years.
13. During this journey, it stayed non-fiction for you.
Yeah.
Did it?
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
Okay, I wonder if you could, if you were able to distinguish between fiction and non-fiction, and what kind of personal experiences did you have during this journey?
Right. I kind of explained a little bit on this, but let me explain. There cannot be a fiction without some non-fiction. Fiction is always embroidering that which is real. The embroidery is the fiction, and that which is simply stated is non-fiction, prose. So I had several experiences in my life. Like I said before, I met such strange characters in different parts, and my relationship to them was non-fiction. It was a reality. But I wanted to present it in such a way that people would be interested in learning what the experiences are. So therefore I fictionalized many characters into one and made it Shunya. This was my relationship with this whole journey of 13 years. In fact, the other reason why it took me 13 years, one is that I was busy with various things. The second was, I'm never satisfied with a sentence. I write something for a paragraph, then I knock it off. I said, no, this is not okay. So the editors had less work. Because I edit it again and again and again until I feel that no, it's clear. So that's why it took me. Otherwise I could have done it easily, and the editors would have to work 1 year on it. They did it in 3 months, and the producer, they said not much to cut. Yeah, there were some which were, in this world we have some rules and regulations, so you can't put everything out. Some of them may appear to be adult literature, you know what I mean, adult movies. So that the editor cut, and I gave her the freedom to snip it off with her scissors. I wish it was there, but she said, sir, somebody might file a case against the publisher. So I tried my best.
Yeah. Just the next question related to the first question. What was the biggest difference between the M that started the project and the M that finished the project?
Well, the M learned a lot of things in the project. I think M became more empty and learned to listen and to take. The moment I stopped listening and saying, don't question me, I'm finished, this M is gone. So the M that you see before me is that which went through this process and became refined. And still there is much to refine. I don't think it stops. It is a process, continuing process. If it stops, then we are stopped, finished.
I have a question, Sri M. You met a lot of saints and you met Avadut, the crazy holy man. How to recognize a saint and how to recognize Avadut or a crazy man?
Yeah, I sometimes used to think that if these Avadutas were in a Western country, they might spend all their lives in the asylum. No, it's difficult to figure out. I don't know myself how to. You know it because when you are with them, you find that your understanding improves. That's the only way you can figure out. In fact, in Shunya, you will read that he met his guru while he was in a mental home. His guru took him out and said, why are you within these walls? Let's get out of here. And Shunya himself, when you read, it will end when some doctor finds that, have I seen this man before? He's a neurologist who is working on the brain. And he suddenly remembers, yes, this is the guy who was brought to me as a patient, an educated man from MIT with a flute in his hand and talking crazy things. But when I talked to him, I found that I had changed my mind. This is how you find out. Otherwise, there are so many mad people. I mean, you would think they're mad, but they would think that we are mad. Look at the crazy world we live in. Always, I sometimes wish I will also walk around like Shunya, but in a civilized world, they might put me behind bars. So I'm wearing a jacket.
You said Shunya is based on a lot of people you met in real life. What about the other characters in the book?
They are all invented. All are invented to interact with this major invention.
Sriyam sir, how we can become Sunni?
Oh my God. Sir, this is a fiction. If you want to become fiction, then we have to forget the facts sometimes. That's about all I can tell you. Because please remember, when you read the book, it's a novel. What lessons you can draw, please do. But you cannot imitate Shunya. It's not possible. Shunya is not only the truth, but has also been embroidered. Because if you start kicking somebody like Shunya did in the story, imagine what will happen.
Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question? I think then, yeah, this was...
So I would request you all to read and enjoy reading the book. Forget about philosophy. Just read it as a story, as a novel. And then let's know what's happening. Yeah? Thank you.
Mr. Sri M will be here to sign your books. You can stay here and then people can pass you by and have a little chat. The books are Maybe, yeah. Talk a little bit further. The books are here in this white cabinet. Thank you so much for coming today.
Your first English translator.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Nice meeting you again. Shunya. You can left Delhi and Mumbai. Have you read my autobiography? I have read it. It's there in there. Okay. This is only, this is Amazon's. Thank you.
Come along, really enjoying meeting you. I see you in February.
We met the last time. इधर इधर रास्ते
कहाँ क्या
इधर
Autobiography. And I must admit to you that I got so hungry because every time you said, I had a delicious potato curry. And I tried to make it.
Did you?
I don't think it was as delicious as you.
I know, I have to make it.
Yes, and you have to have mustard seeds. Yeah. That's what yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Chris.
You enter a work, you cut. Open, then I close until I
Hey, what are you doing? Selling the book?
Already very good sales.
No,
He's a
that's,
good promoter.
I know.
no, this is what happened.